Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 27 of the You Should Fact Check This podcast with your hosts, Devon and Dylan. Woo. We're trying a new recording process, so we'll see how it goes. If it's terrible, we'll fix it. But for right now, we're trying a new, so hopefully it'll be better, but we'll see.
What is... Well, we'll have to figure out. It says, wow, your local audio and video are being uploaded to Riverside.
Yeah. So it should be uploading everything locally on both sides of the stream, which is fantastic. But let's just get into some stuff. Dylan is obviously out in California and he's dealing with some of the floods, right? It's raining heavily where you are.
Yeah, it's raining.
Over to Dylan, where it's raining heavily. What is it like on the ground over in California, Dylan?
Hey, Devon. I'm, as you can see, I'm outside. They always throw me out in the worst of the thick of it, so I'm not surprised I'm out here. But as you can see, high wind. A ton of rain coming down, and it doesn't look like it's stopping for a long time. We've seen a massive sinkhole and 2 cars go into it, and one went on top of the other. So and that's actually true. That was on the news.
And that part of this is actually true. Yeah, thank you for tuning into the rain hour. So California is getting absolutely pummeled with rain right now. Apparently, it's 400 to 600% above average rainfall levels currently, which is just absurd. And obviously, California has been in a drought forever. I mean, I don't know when California hasn't been in a drought, right? I
mean, before I moved out here, I know, yeah, it'd been increasingly just becoming a desert again. Because, right, California used to be a desert. Then it, was there was a little more greenery. And then now it's becoming a desert again, where I've heard in podcasts people talk about, in the next 10, 15 years, it's going to look more like Arizona. But I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
who knows at this point?
I mean, I have no idea either. But one of the things that is for sure, I mean, they've gotten more than 16 inches of rain. In I don't know how long. That's what we do here. We throw out brazen facts without any backing. But I do know that California for a few years has been absolutely pummeled by just that's Dylan. That's going to be rough.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
You're going to have to calm down on the typing.
Oh, sorry. It's really loud.
Yeah, it's quite
loud. I was trying to really go quiet on there. Okay.
But California over the past few years has had a ton of wildfires, right? And so wildfires plus a ridiculous amount of rain inevitably leads to mudslides because all of that foliage that was there that was holding the ground in is now gone, right?
Yeah.
So they're experiencing crazy mudslides and a lot of rain. 23 people killed in Montecito. I don't know how to read, so.
Well, and that's up in, I believe Montecito's it's north of LA. I don't think it's quite up where San Francisco is, but actually, no, Montecito, is that just right above LA? It's not that far. I think it's on the coast.
I don't know. It says Ellen DeGeneres lives there and Prince Harry and Meghan live there. So
yeah, that's not that far away, actually. That's right above. It's still LA area, but it's sort of near Burbank, which is north of me. So
Right. But Dylan hasn't really experienced it because he hasn't left his room. Right?
Yeah.
You're a
Yeah,
hermit
well,
now. That's correct, right?
I have been for the last week.
Dylan is editing furiously to try and keep up with just the speed at editing.
To keep up with the amount of
Which-
rain that's coming down.
Yeah.
Every drop
but
of
yeah,
rain that hits
was-
the ground, I type or I touch my keyboard.
You have to touch your keyboard
I make an
once
edit.
at least. Well, that was, the rain hour, which was pretty horrendous, if I'm being honest. I don't know anything about
I know.
rain. I don't know why we're talking about it other than the fact that you live there.
Well, there is one. I mean, actually, what happened? I read about it. There was a sinkhole in. I think it was pretty far north from where I am. But a sinkhole, like, the ground basically like eroded underneath the asphalt, and there's a massive sinkhole, and their car had driven into it, and then a pickup truck had driven into it and landed on top of that car. So, just that's happening out here. So
That's just nature, baby. I don't even know what to say about that. That's survival of the fittest, which is a terrible joke, but
also,
but yeah. So if you were interested in the little that we brought to the rain, then
Yeah.
that's what you get. What were you gonna say?
I mean, I was just gonna say, like, this is a ton of rain for California, but again, like you're saying, the most dangerous aspect is the mudslides. But it's like, if you really think about how much rain other places get, people are like going crazy over. It's just it's all coming in at once, which I think that's why everyone's like freaked out. But it's just, there are literally there's flooding yearly in like places like I don't know, in the south, near the Gulf, and then like probably in Florida.
I mean, California is supposed to be the perfect place, right? Other than like fires occasionally, it's supposed to be like 70s all year round, and everyone loves living there, and it's all this, and all of the affluent people live in California. I mean, not so much anymore after COVID, but it was the place, and it's still like it has that draw. So when things happen to California, it's definitely highlighted more than other places.
Yeah, and again,
it's like the white person of countries. Like the white person neighborhood, it gets the police the quickest,
I'm too tired to. We just get canceled immediately.
Yeah, I don't know. No one even listens to this. No one will even hear that. In maybe like 5 years, someone will hear it. They'll like look back on it, trying to cancel me, and they'll pull that up.
I mean,
and I'll be like,
you wouldn't get canceled off of that.
Yeah, I mean, you only get canceled off of, for one, it has to be legitimate shit where you actually hate people, I think, nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
And two, like, God damn, I'm making a joke, so just relax. Also, no one cares about me, which is the best part. Yeah, so that's rain in California, and like no one really cares, if we're being honest. I mean, people care, but no one really cares. Everyone sees the headline, is like, whoa, California's getting a lot of rain, and then they just move on with their day.
Yeah, I know. It's just like
everything. It's like everything. I
mean,
mean,
Northern California is
you can't
getting the most, or like they're having the most effects right now. So,
and it's also like, hey, probably needed to happen, right? Like if you're in a drought for 20 years, at some point it's just going to piss on you.
Yeah, it's
No, I mean,
yeah,
that's like
literally.
being in a relationship where one of the partners just suppresses everything, and then one day that partner just beats the shit out of the other one, right?
Yes, I guess that's
Because they've been holding stuff in for way too long. And then it just explodes.
wow. I think across the board, our
Am I being
environment is doing that.
I think that we don't know jack shit about our environment. And I think the environment does what the hell it wants to do. I think that we've had some effect on our environment, but I think that a lot of this is just people trying to push a fucking narrative on either side. And no one really knows what's happening.
Yeah, we talked about this. I mean, we don't
You know,
know
I
for
think
sure.
that it's just, yeah, I mean, there's for sure we've been adding more carbon to the environment as a society because we're industrializing, and we've been industrializing for like 100 years now, and we're trying to make a better world for everyone, right? And part of that is energy and infrastructure, and all of that creates carbon. But we also now are greener as a world than we've ever been. And again, you're just going to have to do the research on this because I've seen some of it, and I could be wrong. That's the fucking fact, is I could definitely be wrong on this, but I'm almost positive that as a country, we're greener than we've ever been. As a world, we're greener than we've ever been in terms of foliage. And that's due to the increase in carbon, because plants fucking love carbon. They eat that shit up all day. Nom, 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 nom.
I'm looking at.
So, you know, I think that the world is more adaptable than anyone really is willing to say. I think that things ebb and flow and things change, and if Mother Nature doesn't like it, she'll punch back. But, with technology, we're going to be able to adjust and create these different things. A lot of this green policy and all of that shit I'm confident that it's just people trying to like push their side of the agenda, get what they want across. It's just a different way of pulling people together and bringing people into your side of the battle, right? If you are the person who believes that the world needs help and you're trying to give them all these facts, first of all, I mean, scientists aren't that hard to pay off. So getting a scientist to say that, everything's falling apart, I don't think would be that difficult. And then,
Sorry, I
felt like I was in the mudslide.
with just my face.
It's all right. But yeah, whatever. I mean, people are just going to pick a side, and people are going to have different narratives for different sides. And no one knows really what the hell is going on. I think the world is going to be fine. We're adaptable. We're super technological. We're good at technology. We can create things when it comes down to the line. And I really don't think we're being affected as much as people are trying to say that we are. It's just another narrative to bring people to one side or the other.
Yeah, and I know we talked about that, and I agreed with the fact that there's a lot that I personally don't know and a lot of people don't know about what's actually going on with the environment. But I will say though that like we talked about before, in my opinion, it just makes sense that we have changed our environment. And is it more negative than positive? I don't know, but I know for a fact that we have changed our environment. Jesus. Did you hear that?
No.
Okay. Okay. Anyway,
This is officially one of the worst podcasts we've ever done.
it's okay. Let's. Okay, we're
It's
gonna
fine.
be.
I mean, no one cares. We're gonna do 100 of these, and then maybe we'll understand what we're doing. Who cares?
Yeah, and also like my brain is really not doing well right now. Because and maybe people should know, I didn't sleep last night because I was editing, and so that's why I'm moving my computer all over, and
It's just not functioning at full capacity, at full clip.
I'm
Which
about
is
5
fine.
years old, so right now.
But yeah, that was, we'll call that the climate hour because it was about 15 minutes, which constitutes an hour nowadays, I think. So, yeah, I mean, if you know anything about the climate, then you don't know anything about the climate, I think. I think you just there's too many opportunities for people to bring on faulty evidence and, just pick a side by, picking data points that fit their narrative. When overall, and like climate, like the change in climate is just change in climate, right? So in terms of like us heating, in some places that's going to be fantastic. And in other places, it's going to suck. Like Arizona, for one, if they keep getting warmer, it's going to suck because they're not going to be able to produce as much food. But if you go to another state where it's a cooler climate, it's going to be warmer longer, right? And they're going to be able to produce more food. So with all of this, things are just going to like adapt and change, and we're going to move things around based on the needs. But I don't think the climate change is, for sure, climate change is not going to be the end of humanity. Like, for sure.
But we don't know that. Well, like, I mean,
as a person who has done very little investigation on this, for sure, you know what I'm saying? Right? Like, I'm the least qualified person to say this, but for sure, nothing's going to happen to the planet, like to us. Also, way more people die of cold than they do of heat. Way more. Way more. Like orders of magnitude more.
yeah, I think like,
So if anything, you should want it to heat up, maybe a little bit.
what's interesting is like, I guess because the ocean has always been interesting with climate change, or I guess the temperature rising, because we already talked about like the coral reefs have really started to die off a lot quicker in the last 20, 30 years than they've ever seen. But also, you've heard of those massive like pile up. They're almost like where currents meet, and they create these like massive piles of trash in the middle of the ocean. They're like these massive. You've seen those, right?
Yeah, I think that those are different issues.
But that is like what that stuff does is, and it's not necessarily climate change, like temperature, but it's like, I'd say that could change our climate, because that could change the amount of animals are in the ecosystem, because a lot of them are just more and more are getting stuff caught, like plastic, especially bottle, whatever they're called, the little things that hold together bottles when you buy Gatorade or whatever. Those pieces of plastic get caught around animals' necks, and I mean, honestly, that is true. You could probably look, and I will be honest, I have not looked up if that has increased exponentially over the last 20, 30 years, but I could be pretty confident that, the ecosystems have really changed from the amount of plastic pollution we have in our oceans now. And also, like plastic in general. I mean, think about it. We haven't had plastic for that long in everyday life. You know, plastic. People used to use like, I guess the Industrial Revolution really probably shot everything into. After that, you know, we had more plastic things that were everyday use. But it's like plastic, since it's non-biodegradable, you have to think like that. That's not being broken down in the environment. So it's sitting in the oceans. It's sitting, and being out here, it's disgusting on the beach. Some of the beaches, it is full of trash because not only are people leaving trash, but the ocean's bringing trash and leaving it on the shore. And that I've never seen that in the last but I could have just seen it on I saw it one time recently where it was like literally full of trash. And I was like, what the heck happened? And it looked like the ocean, like the tide had brought in like trash instead of just people leaving it. You know? And it's like, that's crazy to think. Our oceans are definitely, the ecosystems are changing. And I think it has a lot to do with our consuming of, especially and mass, like getting rid of plastic, you know?
The main problem in terms of ocean trash and like river trash is not the US's consumption or like the world's consumption. It's more access to proper disposal. So most of the trash that it's in the oceans and rivers is from third world countries that have have literally no trash system. They don't have a way of throwing away trash efficiently. So they just throw trash on the ground. And then when it rains, it takes that trash, puts it into the rivers take it out to the ocean.
Well, I think they do.
And so
they do have systems, but they don't obviously.
No, they don't. They don't. Yeah. They literally have zero systems.
Well, but
there are places that have no systems for trash.
I think we are in denial in the U.S. We think we have a system, but in reality, we're putting them into landfills, which is not that much better because then we have crap leaking into our water tables below the earth, like literally in water.
Yeah, Dylan, that's a different issue. That's a different issue. Right?
No, but like I'm just saying, like even places
that's not the same issue.
No, I'm just saying, like we've all contributed to like this plastic pollution, like dumping, and I'm sure some of it goes to the ocean from us too. Like we tend to think we have a good system for recycling, but in reality, it's like I think we have a better system.
For one, I'm not talking about recycling, and I'm not talking about water tables, right? I'm talking about the trash in the ocean. The vast majority of the trash in the ocean comes from third world countries that literally have zero access to proper disposal.
Yeah.
They don't have trash trucks that come through. They don't have trash cans. They just throw it on the side of the road. And then it just washes its way into the river.
Yeah.
This is like there's a company that, I forgot what they're called, but they're the biggest trash capturers on the planet for the oceans and rivers. And they've built these giant systems because like 95% of the trash, or 90%, I don't know the exact stat, but is just on the top like meter of the water. Right. So they build these systems that catch all of this trash and funnel it, and then they're able to dispose of it properly. But they have done this research. They've gone around the world. They've looked at it. They target these third world countries and the rivers that those third world, all of that trash comes from, because that is the most efficient way of getting the trash out of the oceans. Because most of the trash in the ocean comes from these third world countries that have no access to trash systems, and they just throw it on the side of the road. And from what I saw, they don't necessarily know how to fix it because their infrastructure doesn't exist, right? These countries are often like trafficked by foot. There's no like road system for a lot of the housing. And so they don't have a way of creating, and the houses are all really close together. They don't have a great system or good way of fixing the trash problem in these countries other than letting them continue doing it the way that they're doing it and then catching the trash before it enters the actual ocean.
Yeah, and I think I have heard of this. And I guess back to my point before, I was trying to just circle back and say that we in the U.S., I'm sure, have, yes, we probably don't have as much of a footprint from plastic in the ocean as other countries, but I think we still do have a footprint from just the amount of trash I've seen on our shores out here and on the shores in California, just like how much trash is there? I mean, it just goes to show that, you know, we have a lot of contribution here too.
A lot of that could really be from other countries.
Yeah, and that's true. It could be, and that's what I'm saying.
I'm sure there's no doubt some of it is coming from the U.S. You know, like we're never going to be 100% on throwing the trash away properly and it not making it to the ocean. But it definitely, I mean, the fact that we just have a trash system in general, most of the U.S. throws their trash into trash receptacles. They have a truck that comes around and picks it up and takes it to a fucking dump where it's buried. Whether or not burying it is the best way of doing this is, I don't know how to argue for or against that, so I'm not going to say anything on that. But like the trash in the ocean is for sure a problem, but we have more efficient ways of getting it out by targeting those countries that are the biggest contributors to the ocean trash.
I wonder though, do you think, because I was looking at, this is a tangent, but like, I'm just interested, like, for instance, I'm looking at an article about in India today in Delhi's, like, history.
Yeah, I think India is one of the biggest ones.
Because it says they, in the early 1980s, Delhi had a challenge. They had trash. They didn't really have, you know, a good way to dispose. And then a decade later, they have landfills, just like us, though. But the big difference is that, so they, because they do have systems. It's just the thing is like, it's not obviously at the level that we have. But again, I think we're in denial because we don't have a good system.
Part of it is, what do you mean? I mean, in terms of the stuff that we get, right, and getting it out of, for the most part, the U.S. is relatively clean, right, compared to a lot of other countries.
Oh yeah. I'm not saying we're not. I'm just saying like we don't have, because like we used to send all our recyclables to China, and that does not happen nearly as much, if at all, anymore. So the thing is like I think a lot more goes to landfill.
We used to send what to China? Our trash?
Our recyclables. We
used to send our trash to China?
No, recyclables. So, because I learned this from a project I worked on, and
look, hey, listen to this, really quick. So, 80% of the river plastic stems from 1,000 rivers. Only 1,000 rivers. 80% of river plastics.
Where?
And eventually, those river plastics. That's what I was just trying to find. But they've created these intercept things that just sit at like key points in the rivers and receive all of that trash.
In the U.S.?
No, these are mainly not in the U.S.
Oh.
Yeah, they're doing it all over the world, but they're mainly not in the U.S.
Huh. I wonder if that's in like Europe or if it's in more third world countries.
It's mainly third world countries. Let me see if I can figure out more on that. What were you saying?
Oh, I was just saying that Yeah, and I don't know the status today. I assume it's probably similar, but like I learned that because I did a short documentary about recycling, and we learned that China, I think in the 2010s and maybe a little earlier, like used to the incentive to recycle for the U.S. was much higher because we would sell our recyclables to China because then they would use those to produce goods for their country. And but
Right.
then China stopped doing that as much. So then the incentive to recycle went down because these recycling companies weren't making any money. So then
Right.
the less recycling companies there are, the less incentive it is to. It's like, where is that going to go now? It's just going to go straight into a landfill. So like, I don't know what the status is now, but I
so here,
assume it's
let
not
me
that
show
much
you.
different.
Let me
So-
show you a map.
That I'm just saying that
Look.
like my point is we don't have the best system here. Yes, it's probably better than some others, but I wouldn't be surprised if some other like even like third world countries are like on the verge of figuring something out that's better because they're almost like pressured. They have to, but it's just hard in places like that because they don't have.
I don't
the
think they have
infrastructure
to.
and stuff.
They also don't have to. So there's a common like there's this idea for people that are becoming wealthy, people that are poor are more okay with being poor than wealthy people are okay with the idea of being poor. Right? And that's why a lot of like wealthy people are penny pinchers because they're afraid of being poor. Right? Where you can see poor people that go out and spend money on cars and all this stuff, right? There's a lot of wealthy, there's that adage where like a rich guy is always really stingy. Right?
Right.
It's because that guy's afraid of being poor. I think that can be similar when it comes to something like this. These people live in it. They're used to it, right? If that were to start happening in the US, we would freak the fuck out and be like, we got to fix this. But they live in this every day. They're used to it, right? So they're not in a fucking huge time crunch to fix this. They're just used to it. This is their everyday.
Well, they could be though, because like, because like think about like I've seen like there are like videos and stuff about like I saw there's a documentary I saw about. I guess this is a little different, but for instance, in India, like India as a country wants to advance. They want to be more advanced
India
technologically
for sure, yeah.
and like, but it's like they're considered a third world country that they're not just sitting in like, filth and like waiting. They're like trying, but they're just like, third world countries are just going through what the U.S. and other first world countries went through decades ago. It's not that they're not moving; it's just they're moving slower, but they are trying. I bet they are.
They also they don't have
it.
They also don't have anywhere near the setup that we have.
Yeah.
Right. The ingenuity, the ability for corporations to take advantage of those opportunities is not set up in most countries the way that it is set up in the US. And that is the US's superpower, right? So here, look at this really quick. So 1,000 of the rivers contribute 80% of all the trash in the river trash, right? This actually shows, one second. This actually shows the rivers, right? So the red are the 1,000 rivers. And then in the blue, there's 30,000 rivers that contribute to the next 20% of river trash. Okay. So here in Africa, got a lot right on the coasts, right? India is just a wildfire of rivers that are contributing to the trash problem, right? All through China, Malaysia, the Philippines. Like the Philippines looks like, look at that. The Philippines is on fire. And then you come over to the US We literally have one river in the U.S. that is contributing a lot of the trash. And it's over here in Pennsylvania, it looks like. So right here, this is one of the 1,000 rivers, and that is within the U.S. Right? It looks like we have a couple of the 30,000 rivers that contribute the next 20%. Like I said, I don't think that we're perfect, but I do think that we're far better than other countries.
Oh yeah, no,
Mexico.
That's exactly what
South America.
I assumed that. I just think my point was that U.S. like we tend to act like we have everything like very solid, but I know for a fact that for instance, like what I talked about, our recycling, there is an issue with that. That yes, you can make that argument about a lot of things with us, is that we are better off than other countries, but I still think that we could improve. Not
only are we better off, we are the best off.
Well, yeah, but like I'm just saying, like all my point was that I that's common sense. I knew that yes, we probably had a lot of contribution, but not as much as other parts of the world, because we have innovated technology and ways to prevent just chaotic, like, mass buildup. But it's always interesting to be like, oh, how could we improve? And I think we could improve on, teaching people what to recycle.
Yeah, but Dylan, that's not helping the problem, right? Like if you really want to address these problems, you have to go to third world countries. You have to teach them, and you have to help them input the infrastructure needed to make this something that we can actually accomplish, right?
Yeah.
I think right now, for sure, the best way of doing this is the way that this river cleanup is doing it. Because that infrastructure.
What is that called?
That's what I'm trying to find really quick. I'm pretty sure it's just called the ocean cleanup. And it's really cool. Here.
I think I've seen this. I swear I've heard of this.
I'm sure you have. So
I'm looking it up on my phone too.
They take the trash out of rivers, right? This is one of the ways that they do it. And then they also clean up the ocean within the ocean. So they have these giant U-shaped barges, or they have these barges that carry this giant U-shaped net, essentially, that just sits on top of the ocean and grabs all the plastic and crap.
Yeah, I think there are several ocean cleanup nonprofits, I'm sure, but I think I've seen this one before. I wanted to look up what the let me see, ocean trash. Yeah, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And it's, how big is this thing? Dude, I'm literally looking at a National Geographic article that says grades 4 through 12. And it says
so look, this is here,
biology.
Dylan, it shows the Great Pacific Garbage Patch right here, and they're talking about what they expect to do with their cleanup project, right?
20 million square kilometers.
Yeah. So this is kilograms per kilometer squared, right? So on the left is without the cleanup by 2030. And then on the right is with cleanup by 2030 with their program. So it looks like it would do and this looks like, is that Hawaii? That is Hawaii, huh?
What?
So
no,
I don't really know where this
Baja
is.
California. That's the coast of
down here,
Mexico,
over here,
right? Yeah, isn't it?
right? And then this is Hawaii, Pacific. Right?
Oh.
Yeah. So
no, because isn't Hawaii much north or further north? What would that be?
I don't know.
Whatever. It's some island. Could be Catalina.
I mean, that looks
Island,
like Hawaii. What else? Like, doesn't Hawaii have this little, right?
Oh, you're right. Maybe. Yeah. It's so hard to see, but yeah, that could be Hawaii.
I think the main thing with the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is that all of the currents kind of gestate right into this area.
I know. Does it say how big it is on this? But see, isn't that crazy? We have so much plastic in the ocean that we never had before. But it comes with, I mean, it's just, it is what it is.
It's part of a growing society, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It is growing pains, and we have to adjust and create systems like this, like the Ocean Cleanup Project, that is able to figure this out in an economic manner that they can, make money off of figuring this out in some way.
Yeah, and if you think about it too, it's like, look at what we were putting into the ocean in the early 20th century. We probably had oil and maybe if you look at it'd be interesting to look at the study of how much we probably have more oil rigs in the ocean nowadays. But in terms of if you're just looking at oil, it's and what we released into the ocean, we probably had less, obviously, oil that had the potential to be released in the ocean, but in terms of the relativity to how much, relative to how much there were back then, I'm sure that the rate was higher at which there were more oil spills and or just crap going into the ocean that we had no regulation on and stuff. So it's
well, one of the great things about that is oil companies have zero incentive to spill oil, right? Because that is their money. They make money off the oil.
Right.
So if they're spilling oil, they're losing money. So with this, they're super incentivized to make it as clean as possible because then they make the most money.
Right. And that's why, I mean,
so over time, our technology has gotten better. Which movie?
With Mark Wahlberg, where he's on the oil rig and it explodes. It's the true story.
Oh, the BP oil spill?
Yeah. Or whatever it was. The big one, if that's the one that it's, I don't know if it's about that one. Yeah, it was BP.
It was off the coast of Mexico, I'm pretty sure.
Well, wasn't it in the Gulf? No, it's in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, the Gulf of Mexico.
I was thinking of but yeah, in the Gulf of Mexico, but yeah, anyway, it's my point was that we have way better practice nowadays, but it's interesting to think though, it's there are just much more people. There are more people, for instance, digging for oil. There's more access, so there's inevitably going to be more accidental spills and accidental but with more regulation, it's we're at least understanding what that can do, as opposed to before where they would something would go in the ocean, or we'd release something into the environment that was toxic, and it's well, we don't know what that does, but so there's no lesson. I mean, there's a lot to be said about plastics, like you talked about with the plastics getting into our water tables and stuff like that. There's talk about the plastics actually decreasing the size of our, and this is going to get weird, taints, which is a key distinguisher between males and females. What?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I know there's something to do with taints and something to do with plastics. I may be getting them tied up, but
I thought it'd be the other way around. Two separate things, like the plastic would build and it would make more space. It would get down there.
No.
Biologically first.
But it is. I also believe that it's creating a problem for men specifically. I'm sure there's problems for women specifically as well, but
well, didn't they find
the
small
decrease
pieces
in
of plastic?
testosterone.
They found small pieces of plastic in babies' stomachs, right? That were born.
Yeah, it's in everybody's.
Or
now.
in everybody, but it's like, plastic really has.
But in babies, like that's babies. Babies are the one where you're like, no, they should be like pure.
I know.
Right?
We have plastic.
Like babies should be pure as hell.
But we don't know. Back then, the exposure to lead and other elements, like, they never tested for... I mean, look at all the stuff that we get recalled, like tinsel for Christmas used to be made out of, like, glass. That was, like, you could breathe that into your lungs. So they recalled that. Toys used to have lead in them. So it's like...
Yeah.
We used to have crap in our bodies, but it's like nowadays we can really hone in on like, oh my God. The plastic is like...
Yeah, what's happening? Yeah,
we just have more ability to understand. But it's like back then... Because that is one thing. I do it too, but we tend to... It's so easy to, oh my God, this is happening today. It's never happened before, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, look, if you look at history, we were luckily born into a really good time, and now we're seeing what life can be like. Historically, look at what crap people used to go through, where it was like they would have freaking like they would have volcanoes erupting. I mean, I'm talking, centuries ago, but it's like but they had, we do talk about our environment like going haywire right now, but which I do think that we have had a big effect. Just talking about plastics, I guarantee that has had a negative effect on a lot of ecosystems. But just looking at like, going back to what you were saying, it's like, this stuff is bad, but again, the earth is going to change, and it always has changed with humans doing whatever, Yes, we have made a big impact in the last 20, 30 years, but I think you're right in that we don't understand our environment well enough to be like, oh, climate change is happening just because of us, like, consuming too much. I think it's a factor, but I think just like looking at historically, people have gone through environmental shifts. Probably, again, like a freaking volcano, we have not had to go through, like, massive... a lot of volcanoes are luckily dormant right now. Not all of them. There have been eruptions, but it's like...
We live in the best time ever.
Basically,
no question.
And that's why it's so easy to complain.
We are living in the best times ever. Yeah, you have so much time now to just think about shit. And when you think about shit, you think about all the things that are wrong.
I mean, I think we were in the best time. I don't know if we are now, but we were. In the 2010s, we were... How
are we not in the best time now?
I still think with a pandemic, like, we're not in the best time. Because that is, like, affected... You have to admit, that affected
the
everyone
pandemic's...
on, like, a crazy level,
Pandemic's crazy, yeah.
Not just the virus, but like, the after effects, Like, economically, like, mentally, like...
But it also...
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the kids are fucked,
That's why I think the pandemic was like
massive on us. But it has also highlighted some key reasons that, globalization for globalization's sake is not ideal. Right? Especially like the US is fantastic, it's an amazing thing that we've tried to do. Like we've grown, we've innovated, we've done amazing things. And not only have we done that, but we've also tried to bring other countries along with us. However much you can say that we fight other countries, we for sure do. We're not doing everything right, but we've also tried to like bring other countries along with us. And we've invested in other countries so that for one, we can make cheaper stuff for us. It's a win-win situation in a lot of cases. I'm not saying that we're doing it altruistically, but we have globalized to a scale that is dangerous. right?
Yeah,
The
and
U.S.
I know
is a
you're going to
net
bring up
exporter of food.
well, the Germany example, relying on Russia for oil. And I know,
Yeah, I mean, it's
that's like
insane. But it's actually worked out for us, right? Because we are a net food producer and we're a net energy producer, right? So we sell a lot of our energy and a lot of our food to other countries. So now we're going to start selling a lot of our energy to Germany. So it's going to be great for us. But a lot of other countries like China is just not a great country, really. They are the largest importer of food and energy. So if there's any sort of disruption for them, they are severely screwed. And I just listened to this podcast today. This guy, Peter, let me look it up really quick. I would advise everybody to go listen to this. I'm obviously not qualified, but this guy is, for one, extremely intelligent. And two, his name is Peter Zeihan, Zaihan. And he was just on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he talked a lot about, he just had a book that came out. It's like The End of the World. And it's like kind of in quotations as we know it, because he has a very different stance on anybody I've ever heard. So his stance is that China is going away within the next 10 years, no matter what. They're fucked. They are completely screwed. Right. And there's a ton of reasons that he talks about. But one of the main reasons is that China, for a long time, had a one child policy.
Right.
And this shot China in the foot more than anyone could have ever understood. Because now their population is aging like crazy. And they don't have a population of young kids that is going to be able to keep up with the age of that population.
Isn't it like that
as
in other
the population ages,
too? Like Italy's like that too right now.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yes, but Italy has done that gradually over a long period of time. Oh. Right? They've been in decline for a long period of time. China, because they did this one child policy, like just ramped it up like crazy.
Yeah.
So China has like 1.2 billion people or something like that. And the majority of them are getting towards that age of like retirement and getting old. All of those people are going to have to be taken care of, and they're going to have to consume most of the consumables that are imported into the country without a big body of people that can generate money for the country. So China, like, obviously I don't know any of this. I just listened to the podcast. It's like 2.5 hours long or 2 hours long. But I'm going to listen to it again because it was so interesting. And I've never heard this point of view. Like myself, I was worried that the U.S. was on the decline and China was on the incline. Because if you listen to or read Ray Dalio's book about the changing of empires, it's a common thread where these powers are in power for so long and then they start to decline and a new power comes and usurps it, right? But with his view, this is not even close to what's going to happen. For one, the U.S., we have fantastic geography, like really great geography, because we have good soil, and people make arguments that we only have 60 cycles left or whatever. I think we'll innovate past that, and he does as well. But we are a net exporter of food, and we are a net exporter of energy. So if the world goes to shit, we can keep all of our food and energy.
What? I just had a question. This is random, but what's the 60 cycle? I don't know anything about that. Like, what were you referring to? So
there are people that say that our soil is being depleted of the nutrients that it needs to actually create food, right? To grow plants, because it's been used so many times. So there's people estimating that there's 60 cycles left of, crop production. But 60 cycles, I'm assuming that a cycle is a year. I don't know, maybe one every 2 years. Either way, like one twice a year or whatever. 30 to 60 years probably, right, of more food production. In that period of time, I'm sure that we will innovate past it. Right. Well, I mean, it's not good, but I'm sure that we'll innovate past it.
Well, yeah, like it doesn't even sound like that's such a hard thing we'd both have to do research on like what does all that even mean, you know?
Well, yeah, and the fucking wonderful thing about our podcast is we don't have to do that. You know, we can pretend like we know shit, and we can just bring stuff up that we think's interesting and talk about it. Like that's what we're doing here. We're just talking about stuff that we find interesting. Yeah. And if people find it interesting as well, they can follow along.
Yeah, and guys, remember we don't fact check. So,
I mean, we'll do a little research. We'll look stuff up, and if we're wrong, we'll fucking for sure say that we were wrong. But
yeah, I mean, we're not
researchers. We're not PhDs. We might spew some shit. Yeah. Right. I might say something that's a little outlandish every once in a while.
We might spit some bars that people really are like,
that's a stinky bar.
It's a stinky goat cheese bar.
I mean, we're just having fun trying to teach ourselves more about the world.
Yeah, you know? And people should do this.
I think
more. Like we talked about this too, but like I'm terrible at doing it. That's why this is good. Of just, you know, having the confidence and energy and like desire to voice my opinion in a lot of things. Especially now, again, it's like it's ironic because there's so much access to have your opinion heard, but the more and more it gets smaller and smaller, the more and more likely you are to not do it because of the pressure and like the freaking instant judgment that you can receive, which is just, I guess it's a different judgment than person to person. We talked about that too, but it's just so freaking ironic, isn't it? That we have so much access to do this, but it's like no one even wants to say anything anymore, you know? It's just sad.
Well, yeah. What we should really be doing is encouraging more long form dialogue, people actually having real conversations, and not getting butthurt when, you know, I get loud and which, you know, I need to work on because I've worked on it like a ton. I really am trying to listen to people's point of view so that I can understand it better for myself, because there's a lot of learning involved in that. And I need to continue doing that. Like I'm not there yet. I'm not perfect at it. But I do get defensive when I believe one thing and someone else believes another thing. I can be defensive on my point of view, but I want to get better at it. And I think that, you know, the idea of just never listening to someone's point of view is just going to lead you down a path of insanity. You know, if you're only talking and listening to people that you trust and, or people that you agree with, then you're never going to, you're not going to learn new stuff, right? Yeah. Your mind is never going to change. And I think changing your mind is a good thing.
No, I mean, like, that's why you can equate that to going through challenges. It's like, I'd say it's similar to, you know, going through challenges in life where in like hardships where you could avoid them. I mean, you can't avoid everything, but you could avoid an opinion of someone or learning something new, and then you end up there's no growth. And in an ultimate, like, I was talking to one of my friends out here that I've worked with a couple of times, and he is super into like reading about philosophy, and like he's a super avid reader. I'm not super well read, but he was talking about like this concept of, you know, look, like there's like a study where people were asked in their lifetime, like, when were you, they did a study where mothers would I guess they had a clicker or something, or some type of charting thing, where while they were raising kids when they were young, they were they would click this button or something that would basically indicate that they were not happy at that moment. Like they were at their most unhappy state. But then they did a reassessment after their kids had grown up, and they said the most meaning or the happiest time in their life was with their kids. And it's funny because in the time
that was also the times that they clicked the most.
Yeah, that they were like, I hate this. But it's because humans desire meaning more than they desire, because meaning comes from raising the kid and not short-term, like, like happiness, which is like comfort. And so meaning comes from growth, which in turn is hardships and stuff. It's like that's meaning, and I think that's where forming a new opinion and not being afraid to do that can in some ways be like, it's similar, it's like, it's growth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's an interesting idea. Like, I think that what is one of the main problems today is people are misinterpreting what meaning really is.
Yeah.
Like meaning for some people means like, I'm a political party, I'm on a political side, and that's what I believe is the best no matter what. And that's my meaning, is to defend the party.
Yeah.
And I think that for one is short-sighted, and for two, it's a little ignorant, because to think that the political parties are not corrupt in any way is insane, I think.
Yeah.
Like no matter what side I pick, I know I'm picking some level of corruption.
Yeah, and you're picking something to have more meaning that's created by other humans that are imperfect and are going to have like you can't create meaning
outside of yourself too.
Yeah, you can't create meaning from something that's built by other. Like, you have to find meaning within you, and like what is meaning for you. And also, the other thing that was super interesting that he also said is he talked about. Oh shoot! What the heck was I going to say? He talked about. It was good too. He's so smart. Like every time I talk to him, I'm like,
who is this?
His name's Steven.
Who is this?
He works. He's a
color. Oh, one of your friends.
Yeah, he's older than I am. He's older than we are. He's like 31, but he's a colorist.
He's a colorist.
But dude, he's like Austin, where they're just like so well read. But
yeah.
Anyway, hopefully I remember it. But
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think trying to find meaning in a political party or in something outside of yourself can be difficult. I mean, a lot of people find real like deep meaning in the work that they do, like the business that they run, the work for and stuff like that. Like that's one of the reasons that SpaceX and Tesla are like the number one places for engineer graduates to go, right? It's Tesla and it's SpaceX. They switch first and second spot almost every time because both of those businesses have meaning behind them, right? SpaceX's goal and mission is to get people to Mars, right? Make life multiplanetary. Tesla's mission is to create the best EVs so that we can transition our world from fossil fuels to a more, what do you call it? The regenerative, whatever energy that is not, it's created. It's not just pulled out of the ground, right? We're taking energy from sustainable energy. Yeah. So those two businesses have a very clear and, impactful meaning for a lot of people. And that's why it's so fun for those people to work there. And their innovation is on like another level. Like if you really want to be good at what you do in terms of engineering, those are the places to go because you get to work on difficult fucking problems and you get to try new things constantly.
Yeah, I just remembered, and this is gonna go off of that a little bit.
Take a tangent.
It's like a mix, but I remember what he said, and it's actually not like it. Anyone could think about this, but like if you think back to, when people had less, and like, for instance, like, if you look at poor people in the early 20th century, whatever, in the U.S., it's like people were working in factories, and what was their meaning? But really, people who had less found more meaning, which is just like you see it in movies and stuff. It's like the people who've really like are the liked characters are the ones who go through hardship and change for the good. But it's true. It's like there are a lot of people back in earlier times that their meaning was sticking together. Like literally all their life was like sticking together through like literally like a war, or sticking together. Like they had meaning within circumstances that are just like so different,
Yeah, or just as simple as providing for your family.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can have such deep meaning knowing that you were able to like provide for your family, raise your family, keep them fed and clothed and all of that stuff. Like and that's probably another reason why it's difficult to find meaning nowadays, is because things have gotten so easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That meaning is a lot more like, it's a lot more ambiguous today. Back in the day, meaning was like, hey, I fucking put food on the plate, and obviously for a lot of men, and then women as well are working. They're definitely doing that now. And back in the day, it was like, I'm raising my family,
Yeah.
I bared these children and I'm raising them from, infancy. That was a lot of meaning. And now people have so much time and so much, like there's just excess of everything, that meaning is a lot more ambiguous and difficult to come by.
But I think it's not a bad thing, because we're going from one extreme almost to another of like, I guess it wouldn't be like an extreme, but I think nowadays, since there is so much that we can find in like, what is meaning, everyone has so much time to think. I think it's like you go from one extreme to the other to find that middle ground, which is always the goal, is to find that balance, like where is the equilibrium, I guess, and it's like, and it makes me think of this one example that I saw recently of, everyone's talking about like everyone's quitting their jobs, or that was a huge thing, I guess, during the lockdown. Or like
it still is.
Yeah, but it's like
people are not coming back to work. The Great Resignation.
And there's two sides to that story, though, because at first I was like, because my dad, I hear my dad's side of the story a lot, because he's a business owner and he has to deal with. It's terrible. Like people are literally, there are a lot of people that are just lazy. Like they're just like, oh. But the flip side to that is that sometimes, just like we're talking about change, a societal change comes from things sort of going to extremes or like pushing the boundary. And I feel like it's actually not the worst thing that people are testing this right now, because I think it's a good time for it. But there are I think there are toxic work environments, but I think there are like inefficient work systems that we need to break through. That we could be more productive, we could have better well-being, and that's just look at like the Industrial Revolution and like the progression of, people used to work in factories and be a cog in the machine. And then they realized, whoa, wait, I have more meaning. And then it's like this slow progression. And it's like, that was for the good, because now we have technology that we would never have had if we never broke through that, like, oh, we could do more in the workplace, and I think people quitting their jobs is almost like testing this. It's like we may need to change something because change is necessary, you know. And we may have stayed stagnant if people just were like, everyone's like, well, everyone just thank God we all work so hard in the U.S. and maybe it's not the worst thing that people are like quote unquote lazy. It could be like a guinea pig thing where it's like in the end it solves some issues that could have come down the line.
It's possible that it could be solving issues. I think most of those innovations, like if you're talking about industrial revolution, like people working in factories, most of that change and adjustment comes from technical innovation and cost savings. Like labor is the highest cost in pretty much every business.
Well, and also, but I think the biggest thing that change comes from is a revolution, a revolt. It's when a group of people are so fed up that change is necessary so that as a group people can move forward, or else there's like, it's like part of a machine has broken down, one half of it has broken down, and it's like the other side can't move. It's like the bourgeoisie proletariat situation. It's like, the proletariats are revolted. It's just like the French Revolution. It's like these things change because one group is oppressed and the other group has the means of production. And in this case, it's very different, but it's like, if it gets to that point where, our working model is whatever, people aren't going to work in it, then there's two sides to this story, and I'm not strongly, I'm still researching, but I just think it's so interesting. It's like we're in times right now where it's like we could see a new work model. We could see people being like, no, you know what?
Oh, yeah, we already are.
It's like we're all working from home and stuff. It's like in 10 years, we're going to be like, whoa, people worked like that? Where people went to work Monday through Friday and they had to go into the office. It's like people might be working, the typical work week could look like, it could shift 2 days or something, where it's like a weekend isn't even a weekend anymore or something. It's weird.
I think that I don't think that the work from home thing will be around very long for innovative businesses.
Yeah, I mean, it's
going to depend on it works for a lot of industries. It works for some industries for sure, right? Like editing, I think you could say is really a good industry to use where people work from home. But industries like, healthcare, like medical, like just innovative industries that need to be collaborating with people constantly.
Oh, yeah.
I think that it's really difficult to get that collaboration over something like this. Like for me, I would much rather us be doing this podcast one-on-one. Right?
Oh yeah.
In the same room.
I'm so on board. I do not like the concept of working from home long-term. I'm just saying like with the potential of new like viruses that, because we are going to have another
talked about last time
pandemic at some point.
Well, we talked about last time with the metaverse. I mean, you could, whatever, who cares? We're going to have a pandemic. We're going to have, yeah. Well, but you can't be like, we're just going to have.
No. I'm saying not that, we should be scared and locked down. I'm saying my point is that I think working from home is going to be around longer than we think because of that, because like that's just inevitable. We're going to have another, maybe not a pandemic, but like something where we have like,
I don't even know. I mean, this was almost like the consensus has kind of shifted that the majority of people think that it was a lab leak now. Right. And we may never actually know that. But if it's true that the U.S. funded and was working on this virus, right, and then it leaked from a lab, I don't know what the likelihood of it happening again is.
Yeah, see, I don't know. I didn't know. I have not looked into that again. I should look into that again. Like what this... We may never know though. We may literally never know in our lifetime.
Right. I don't think we actually ever will. I don't think we really ever will, unless. I mean, the hardest part is it's China. You know, like if this was if this was a lab leak from the U.S., we would have known right away. But you know, I don't know. I think that. I honestly have no idea what we've been talking about this whole time. I think that the world we're good, you know?
Yeah.
Things are going to be great.
We're in better shape than
build businesses, talk with people. Yeah.
We do have a lot of issues, but we're better than what people are saying. So.
Yeah, but everyone's going to fucking have issues always, you know? And especially like if you're hearing issues, if you're hearing the most issues from the people that aren't working on the issues, then I think that it's a little bit easier to shrug those off. Right? And that's why it's so important when you're trying to get people to agree on something that you have to pay off scientists to say this is true. Right? Because those people are working on it. Right. So you need people that are working on it to sign off on whatever your side is. Right. And sometimes it's scientists that are legitimately saying this is the truth. You need to believe this. Right. And it's legitimate. They've not been paid off. That's what the science says and everything. And then there are sometimes when they've been paid off because that's just the fucking world. Like there's corruption for sure.
I wonder who has gotten paid off. And so having
that.
I'm just like actually just
so
curious.
So many people,
or like recently. I know in history.
Well, I mean, if you just think about the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, right? You had every government official, everyone saying that it was illegitimate and that it wasn't something that's real. It was Russian disinformation. And then it comes out that it is. Like, it's legitimate. It's not Russian disinformation. It's real. And there were tons of people that were saying, oh, this is just Russian disinformation. Whether or not they truly believe that or whether or not they got paid off is yet, like, who knows? But for sure that there were some people that were paid off.
Yeah, I don't doubt
to say.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
it's and paid off in one way or another, right?
It's just like the freaking, Twitter. It's like there are a lot of opinions that were, apparently being shut down,
suppressed.
It's just like, it's how it is with everything, with groups of people. There's always info that people don't want other people to know, or they want people to know so that narratives push. But I mean. This is a good one. Yeah. We probably should finish.
I'm going to be honest with you. The first 10 minutes, the first 10 to 15 minutes were dog shit, right? But if you can get past that, the last hour was pretty quality, I think. I think we had fun discussion.
Yeah, I mean,
and hopefully we just get better over time.
Yeah, neither of us remember what we talked about, so you guys will have to fill us in. But I think we were just talking, which is actually good.
Which is exactly. This is exactly what I want to do. I just love to sit down and talk about the world.
Yeah, I don't like it, right. But it's so good for me. Well, actually, no, it's not that I don't like it. I just get anxious for some reason because I'm like, oh, I don't know anything.
Right. I think over time you'll get more used to not knowing everything and just be like, what's the problem with not knowing everything? We're just, having a conversation.
I know. I just, how it is when we talk especially with, when you, Austin and I start going, it's like, I'm just like, guys, I'm not well read. I wish I were. I wish I liked to read, but it's just it's the way it is. So then it just bleeds into my confidence. So
yeah. Well,
but this is good. This is just,
maybe at episode 100 you'll have some confidence.
I've got some confidence. I need a little more.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. If you made it here, there's no doubt that you should like and subscribe, and leave a comment. Give us a reason why Dylan should have some confidence.
Just to,
because he's a sexy man.
especially today. I'm the color of my wall.
Yeah. Before I got on, Charlie was like, "You gonna do something with your hair?" I was like, "Do I need to like wet it and put stuff in it?" She's like, "Yeah."
Dude, I literally, if you saw my hair under this, it's literally a nest.
You'd be canceled.
I have pigtails for all we know. Tiny pigtails.
Cultural appropriation.
Yeah, I'm canceled.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. We will see you in episode 28 of the You Should Fact Check This podcast.
Should we have people?
All right.
We should have all our viewers, our listeners, send in suggestions for topics.
Yeah, for sure. If you're here, give us a suggestion for what we should talk about.
Yeah.
Or what you would want to hear us talk about.
And if it's us giving suggestions to ourselves, that's okay. But we hope
that's what it's going to be.
All right.
Yeah. All righty. Thank you guys. Goodbye.
Goodbye.